on page 320. This is section 7.1. It says finding numbers that are not in the domain of the rational functions. So what do they mean by that? F of x is equal to 3 over 7x minus 14. There are two huge rules in math. You cannot have a 0 in the denominator of a fraction, and you can't have a negative under the square root. Of course, then we eventually learn that if you have a negative under the square root, you get an imaginary number. But the part about having a 0 in the denominator, we don't have any loopholes for that. So the first thing that you have to do, they give you a fraction that has an variable in the denominator. Then you've got to figure out what value of x would make that equal 0, because I'm going to have to restrict that value and not use it. So in order to keep it from equaling 0, that's exactly what you have to do, is make it equal 0 so you know what to avoid. So the first thing you need to do is 7x minus 14 equals 0. And then you divide, and x is 2. So here's what you learned. You learned that when x is 2, the denominator is 0, so we must restrict x from the domain. Okay? So the way they're going to ask you to write this answer is, you can use x's such that x is not equal to 2. That's our only rule. You can use any other number you like. You can use 0, you can use negative 2, you can use fractions, you can use a million, you can use a million plus 3, but you just can't use 2. Just cannot use 2. Okay? Well, there's another top problem that says g of x is equal to 3 plus x over x squared minus 4x plus 3. Once again, our job is to figure out what numbers, there's 2 of them this time, that would make the denominator equal 0. And I have to restrict them. Since this is a degree 2 problem, you have 2 options. You can either factor, set your factors equal to 0, or you can use the quadratic formula. Okay? Let's factor this one. X and x. When you go to factor, if the last number is positive, it means that these have the same sign, and it's whatever sign you see in the middle, so they're both minus. What factors of 3 would give you a negative 4 in the middle? Negative 1 and negative 3. So I factored, then set each factor equal to 0. X is 1, or x is 3. So you can use any x such that x is not equal to 1 or 3. Well, because it just had an x there. If it had had a 2 in front of it, it wouldn't have been just the opposite. It would have been the opposite divided by 2. Now, the other option for this, because they're not all going to be so easy that you can factor them, is that you could have used the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula says negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you're factoring x squared minus 4x plus 3. So a is 1, b is negative 4, c is 3. And you plug these in. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3 over 2 times 1. Work the part under the radical. Negative 4 squared is 16. 16 minus 12, so this is 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2. What's the square root of 4? 2. So this is 4 plus or minus 2 over 2. Then you split it into two problems. 4 plus 2 over 2. 4 minus 2 over 2. This is 6 over 2, which is 3. This is 2 over 2, which is 1. So you get the same answers whether you do quadratic formula or factoring. Now, if you can factor easily, that's the easiest thing to do. But if you can't, you can use this method. Do you have any questions about those two?